Good afternoon, SJHL fans. Clark Munroe here with Jamie Neugebauer. We are at the Warman Home Center Communiplex at the home of the SJHL MJHL World Junior A All-Star Showcase. Really exciting week here in Warman, Nugsy. You've been here for a couple days. We're going to get into all of the action that's been going on so far, what's going to come up in the next couple of days as well. We're also going to recap the 8 games that happened over the past weekend. We'll look at players of the week. We have a special guest, Mike Reagan, going to be joining us right here on location in just a little while. So we'll get all the thoughts from Mike Reagan, who is the general manager of Team SJHL here at the event this week, and a whole lot more. Before we get too deep into it all, and before I let Nugsy go off here, I've got to thank our sponsors, of course, Borgo, Cantera Seeds, Capital Auto Mall, SGEU, SGI, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Sask Lotteries, Chevrolet, Nutrien, UPL, of course, the presenting sponsor of all of our broadcasts, Tourism Saskatchewan, RBC, Great Western, and of course the presenting sponsor of this whole entire event, Palliser Insurance, managing risk, ensuring success. These guys are fantastic. They've been a big help for this week, and they're a huge sponsor here. So let's bring in the co-host here, voice of the Notre Dame Hounds, Jamie Neugebauer. Jamie, you've been here, like I said yesterday, you got to see some of the action in practice. How's everything going so far?
Yeah, real smooth, real good so far. Both teams have brought it. Really neat to see SJHL players, MJHL players wearing Team Canada jerseys.
Yeah.
I was speaking to a couple of them earlier today, and they were saying that it was kind of like floating a little bit when they went out there wearing that Canada jersey. And then, Vinny Palmerine, in typical Vinny Palmerine fashion of the Notre Dame Hounds defenseman, he said, and then 5 minutes later, I forgot what I was wearing. So,
yeah.
It's an initial thing, and then they get over it, and it's just hockey again. But, yeah, it's been smooth. It's been good. Obviously, everything here in Warman is always terrifically run, and they treat us really well. Been a great time, and I can't wait for this evening and tomorrow morning for some actual game action.
Yeah, game time tonight is 7:30 p.m. right here. We will be at this location calling the game, so we're excited there. Obviously, Team SJHL will be playing Team MJHL, so there'll be a lot of big names coming in that we're going to have to preview here. And you and Rory McGouran, who's sitting off to our side here, are going to be previewing the rosters of the teams and the event itself a little later on in the show. But we do have some actual SJHL news to talk about. There were 8 games over the weekend, so we'll get into that first. Before we get into that, make sure if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, please hit like, please hit share, please comment away. We won't have your comments available to read on the screen today like we normally do in SJHL Weekly, but please comment in. We want to hear from you either way. And if you're on Twitter, please hit that retweet button, and we'll get the engagements going as much as possible. But let's have a look at the score recaps. Bryce, do we have the Friday score recap? No. Okay, so Friday didn't happen, Nugsy. We're going to go ahead and skip ahead to Saturday here. Obviously, there were 4 games on Friday, and we can get into that after this portion, but we do have the graphic for Saturday first. So let's do that. Yorkton, this game was in Churchbridge, Saskatchewan, in Kaminsky Arena. And if that sounds familiar, it's because Laurent Geiswolf's head coach, Kevin Kaminsky, has an arena named after him. Yeah. Must be nice. Yeah. Yorkton beat the Laurent Geiswolves 4-2 in that game. Humboldt doubled up Melville 6-3 in a big game at the EPA on Saturday night. We'll get into that in a second. Weyburn continued staying hot, beating Kindersley again for a second time. They also beat them on the Friday, 3-2 on Saturday night. And after Notre Dame won an amazing game on Friday night, which we don't have the graphic for, Nugsy, I know that, but they won an amazing game in overtime on Friday. The roles were reversed on Saturday with Battlefords beating Notre Dame 4-3 in overtime. So as we come back in to, I was going to say the Legends Event Center. It's not called that anymore. The Warman Home Center Communiplex here in Warman, Saskatchewan. We have some headlines. We usually do our headlines here for the recaps. So let's start out with the Pack on the prowl. And, of course, Laurent had a big week on the road, a couple of games that they, maybe weren't favored for, but they got a couple of big wins, Nugsy, last week.
Yeah, for them, it's all about buying into what Kevin Kaminsky said. The Ice Wolves were in Wilcox last week, Wednesday, and I spoke to Kevin Kaminsky before the game, and he was talking about trying to get his guys to buy in, and guess what they did, and what does that mean for Kevin Kaminsky's team? That means you front puck, you get on the forecheck, you get in shot lanes, they block a ton of shots, and they have really, really gotten the saves. Both Logan Falk and Graham Brown have stood on their heads lately, and over those 4 games, we talked about, of course, we showed the graphic there, Clark, with their loss in Churchbridge, but they won 3 of the 4 on the road trip, including this one that you're watching right now at the CN Community Center in Melville. And over those 4 games, Graham Brown had a .949 save percentage, Logan Falk had a .924 save percentage. And when you get save percentages like that, usually good things happen. The team gave up 10 goals against in those 4 games, so 2.5 a game, to give yourself a chance to win. And Clark, as you know, and I know you're a big Mason Buchert fan.
Yes.
His line with
Not
Tate
as big as Rory McGouran.
No,
but
still, we all are. Mason and his line with Tate Donkin and Zane Normand just combined for 17 points over the 4. So, the big boys are playing their best, and that's what you need if you're L'Orange. And, they found ways to win in different ways, and that's always a good sign.
Yeah, and one of the things coming into the season with L'Orange, and we talked about it, it's back on our preview shows and everything, was those big guys are going to have to contribute, especially early on as some of the new guys come in for L'Orange. And like you said, Kevin Kaminski is a coach that demands a buy-in, a certain type of play, a certain type of style. And sometimes that takes a little bit longer for coaches like that to get that going, but once they do, and everybody does buy in, Nugsy, I think you can agree, it's a magic thing. And I think with L'Orange, maybe they found a little bit of that in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and a big-time amount of credit goes to the leadership group there in L'Orange. You think about Ryland Silzer, obviously such a guy who's been around the league for a long time, a really well-rounded defenseman in our league, and obviously Jacob Cassette, Mason Buchert. These guys have been around a long time. Lots of promise every year. Oh, they're going to be good. Oh, they're going to be good players. They're sick of promise. They're sick of potential. This is their year to make it happen. And another thing I'll say is Kevin Kaminski's done a phenomenal job bringing in some good young players.
Yeah.
You think about, Graydon Perosny. You think about Nathan De Silva. Think about Tate Donkin.
Yeah.
I wrote about Tate Donkin on the Players of the Week, just being another in a very long line of Prince Albert Mintos alum that have come into this.
Now,
league
spoiler alert, Nugsy. Now, technically, that came out yesterday, so if anybody hasn't seen Players of the Week yet.
Yeah,
but
I figured you had plenty of time to check that out on SJHL.ca. But the bottom line is they've done a great job blending the old and the new, and their decor just does their job. They know what gets them paid, as one coach I know used to say, give them ice time.
Yeah.
And they do their jobs, and they don't have to be flashy about it. And they found ways to win hockey games and blocking shots and making saves. That's how you do it.
And if I'm not mistaken, talking about the defensemen knowing what their jobs are, Ryland Silzer, I think, leads the league in goals by a defenseman right now with 6, if I'm not mistaken. Or if he's not, he's right at the top. So he's doing his job and then some. And like I said, young guys, like you said, like Tate Donkin. Bringing in a guy like William Forsberg back after he was gone, I think that's going to be a huge addition for them as well.
Well, you think about them like down the middle. You have Zane Normand, who's a great face-off guy. You've got Cole Thomas, great face-off guy. Will Forsberg, great face-off guy. Again, situational. Like, is this the prettiest hockey team in the world? Are they going to play the prettiest?
They have the prettiest jerseys. I still say that.
Jerseys.
I still say that.
If you win face-offs, you block shots, you make saves.
Yeah.
You're going to win a hockey game.
It's a good combo. Let's bring the headlines back up here, if you guys don't mind, in the back there. We'll look at now who let the dogs out. Who? It's the Notre Dame Hounds. They got a big win on Friday night against Battlefords. And Yorkton also got a couple wins last week as well. We talked about the one in Churchbridge over L'Orange. But let's look at Notre Dame now, Nugsy. Obviously, you're close to that one. They got a huge win in Battlefords on Friday night. Liam Hunks had a monster game. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's funny how the game of hockey works.
Yeah.
Friday night I actually thought, for the most part, the Hounds were worse than they were on Saturday, and they won the game on Friday. Now, the third period on Friday was a different animal. That was as good a period as the Notre Dame Hounds organization had probably played. I could think even back to the 2021-22 season, like how good the Hounds were in the third period in this game. And, speaking to Ryland Williams a little bit here, of course, the Battlefords North Star, who's at this event, he said that, they really did, the Stars did, unfortunately for them, let their foot off the gas in the third period. They got 3 goals, throughout the first period and a half in this game on Friday. And the Hounds did not look alive at all. And the Stars looked like they were all over them. And if it wasn't for the miraculous play of Spencer Borsos, a bit of a teaser, we'll say, for the highlight of the week there. Without some miraculous play by Spencer Borsos, it was 3-0 at one point, but it could have been 5, 6, 7, 8-0 Battlefords if not for him.
You know what, Nugsy, just thinking about last year a little bit really quick. We talked about a guy like James Venn, for example, whose workload was massive for the Melfort Mustangs last year. Certain other guys, I think of Topher Chirico, had a big workload. Spencer Borsos has played like 95% of the games so far for the Hounds. Well, so talk about a workload.
Yeah, all but one. And look, he's, he would be the first to admit that for a good stretch to start the year, he wasn't himself. He had a bit of a tough off season, things that he couldn't control. But he's, seems like he's really figured it out lately. He was good against L'Orange during the week too. He's been massive. And, maybe it just took one start for Caden Perron in Kindersley there a couple weeks ago for him to realize, hey, somebody else can make some saves and play a net for the Notre Dame Hounds. And I think that was a comfort for him. And obviously, getting Vinny Palmerine back, getting Vinny in and fit and ready to go here and playing his best hockey also really helps. And, Hunks and Paul Marine played a ton over
Yeah.
these 2 games. But, hey, you know what? This game looked dead and lost. Second intermission, this team could have fell apart. But they didn't. Liam Hunks obviously was a big piece of that, 4 points on the night. As you'll see, a couple of them beauties. But, hey, you know what? You find ways to win hockey games or you find ways to lose hockey games.
Now, just quickly, as we're watching the highlight pack here still from Friday night, Battleford's is on a really nice stretch as well. So let's not discount how well they've been playing recently either. And the fact that Notre Dame was able to get a win off of them, I think they were 7-2-1 going into that game in their last 10 games.
And they still haven't lost 2 in a row all year.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the first 2 of the year against Kindersley.
Yeah.
So since then, they haven't lost 2 in a row, which is always, again, always a good recipe for success.
Yeah.
They have an interesting situation in net now with Justin Merrick and Connor Baumbach. And Connor Baumbach on the Saturday game in this series played his second game of the year after getting hurt in his first game of the year against Nipawin back in September. So he's a good young goalie that I think will really push Justin Merrick. I really liked what I saw of him on Saturday. But there's a beautiful shot by Liam Hunks.
Yeah, there it is.
As he just stepped around, and the edge work of Liam Hunks is some of the best in the league, some of the best in junior A hockey in Canada, in my opinion. And then, just a couple more amazing saves by Spencer, and just what a wonderful young man, well-raised, incredible family, and I can't say enough about how good of a kid Spencer Borsos is. The Hounds kept pushing. The Hounds outshot Battleford's big in the third period, Clark, in that, and I think that was big for their belief that they could play well in a rink and against a team that, again, as you said, has been playing well too. And belief is such a big part of hockey, and this Hounds team did it. Here's that play, a little bit of a trick play, I call it, quote unquote, but not really. Just win a face-off, play it over to Vinny, and one time there's a Vinny bomb that I like to talk about. So, good for the Notre Dame Hounds to get that win, and I know, it felt good for the boys there.
Yeah, now, as we bring it back into the rink here, Bryce, we have to talk about the Yorkton Terriers, too. They're the other half of this who let the dogs out headline. And they're doing some winning again as well. They haven't slowed down despite all this stuff that went down off the ice. They've battled through that adversity, and it looks like they've come out better on the other side almost.
Yeah, I mean, how often do you play 2 neutral site games in 2 days?
Yeah, exactly.
Really
Cote First Nation on Friday and Churchbridge on Saturday.
And won both of them.
Yeah.
And, that's not always easy, different type of a surrounding, different type of circumstance. And, a bunch of guys that are getting ready to play here for the SJ as well. Obviously, think about Dustin Renus and Callum Craig, who I believe, I'm okay saying that Callum Craig, I believe, is going to get the start tonight for Team SJHL.
Inside scoop.
And, of course, Tommy Reese has been wonderful out here in practice, too, and I'll be talking about him a bit later. But, the Yorkton Terriers, their issues are way in the rearview mirror.
We're not even thinking about it anymore.
They just put excuses aside. Injuries doesn't matter. Their depth, they continue to be impressive. They scored 9 goals over the week, Clark.
Yeah.
7 different goal scorers. And you think about the guys who led the way, Aiden Knudsen and Tyler Palin and Quinn Tavender and Vinay Junek. Like, these are good players, but not the biggest names that you think about with the York Terriers.
Yeah.
The depth is just as much there. We always talk about the depth of the Weyburn Red Wings, which we can get to in a sec. But Yorkton's shown that they have that depth, and it's so incredible.
And when we talked to head coach and general manager Emery Olawson on SJHL Insider, he mentioned the importance of the addition of Keenan Ingram to their power play, and he goes out and scores a couple of power play goals on Saturday. So not surprising there that the Yorkton Terriers continue to roll on pretty good as the season continues. Now, headline number 3, air in these wings. These Red Wings, the Weyburn Red Wings continue to stay hot. They're sitting at the top of the standings now in the SJHL. They're moving up the CJHL power rankings. There's a lot to like about the way the Weyburn Red Wings are playing right now.
Yeah, look, talk about depth. They come at you in such waves. They, they won 2 games here in Kindersley, and I'm sure Cody Mapes would agree, and I'm certain Clayton Jardine would agree that actually Kindersley played very well both games. They put 88 shots on Angelo Zoll and Dazza Mitchell over the 2 games, but those 2 guys are part of the Weyburn Red Wings, and so they did their job just as much as any other Weyburn Red Wing did. And that's the bottom line. Obviously, Kindersley's not an easy team to beat. Hey, how much fun, Clark, would this be a playoff series?
Oh, fantastic.
Like, these 2
and
teams,
it's not quite lining up that way, but it's not that far off. It could possibly happen. And, like you said, I think these are 2 teams. Like, Kindersley's a team that they're going to continue to just keep getting better despite having a solid start to the season. I think they're kind of finding their way a little bit right now, and when they do that, I just think, especially with Cody Jamin, the more comfortable he gets back in net, Brett O'Halloran has proved that he can do it. So I think there's a lot to like about Kindersley, a lot to be scared of in a potential playoff matchup.
Yeah, they got a lot of good veterans.
Yeah.
You think about Shane Tibbles, Dawson Carroll was the player of the week recently.
Mm-hmm.
But then, how many of them are here?
Yeah.
They have a barrel full.
Rylan Wheeler, the Perlingers.
The Perlingers and Herchak.
And Herchak,
are
of
all
course.
here, so they got 4 guys, which
Yeah.
is, of course, the most of any SJHL team. So, they got a lot to like for now and for the future. There in Kindersley, they got local boys as well. Obviously, there in the Perlingers and Ethan Sotner. So, hey, get out to watch games in Kindersley. I know the support has been really good out there. So, yes, they lost these 2 games. Weyburn extends their unbeaten run to 12 games. They've only lost that 1 overtime game at the Elgar Peterson Arena on Saturday, which, again, we can get to the magic voodoo or whatever you want to call it. That's at the EPA on Saturday nights. But, hey, Yorkton, man, you got a wagon, and they keep playing well, even though Weyburn found a way to beat them.
Yeah, exactly. We'll come back into this. Yeah, I guess the highlight pack's over there. And the final headline is EPA Saturday. Now, there is a little bit, like you said, of voodoo going on, it seems, this year at the EPA, specifically on Saturdays. The Elgar Peterson Arena in Humboldt, specifically on Saturdays. Nugsy, what's going on?
Yeah. Hey, I don't know. I mean, I'm a podcaster for the Notre Dame Hounds.
Rory, where are you at?
I almost never see the Hounds win on a Saturday night at the EPA.
Yeah.
So
right.
I don't really know the solution, but whatever it is, whether it's Scott Barney or Braden Klamosko or Nathan Oysterek, Darcy Hagen before him, whatever you go back, the EPA has always been a formidable place for teams to come in, whatever night it is. But there's something about Saturday nights. We was talking to Jacob Streetsy, who's been hanging around here, and talked about the fact that they don't almost never have a Friday night game in the EPA, so they're wondering why that is. But just specifically about this game against the Melville Millionaires, hopefully you can get that highlight package up here. Is that,
there we go.
They were able to
they fell asleep at the wheel back there, Nugsy. That's okay. They're fixing stuff.
They're working hard here, but Caden Drury obviously is the guy that you circle on the Melville Millionaires when he comes into your barn, and they had a really good game plan for him. Took the puck away from him, didn't let him have it, didn't let him generate his foot speed going through the neutral zone and get into the offensive zone and back you off and make things happen. And Humboldt Broncos just stuck to their game plan. But you see where all these goals are, Clark. They're through traffic. They're in blue paints. Yeah, it was a bit of a tougher night for Luke Brunin, but also a very interesting goalie matchup. Between Luke Brunin, who's down from the Western League, and Brady Holtvoet, who's down from the Western League. 2 very young Saskatchewan goalies. Great to see them go at it as well. And the Humboldt Broncos, Clark, something about it. Saturday night. Love to ask Rory what happens. I don't know if they have a special chant or what they do, but Humboldt is always a very good roster, of course, and found a way to shut down the Melville Millionaires, who are a bit of a tailspin right now.
Yeah, exactly. And we can talk about Melville a little bit. A team coming into this week was looking real strong, and they had a couple of unfortunate losses this week against some very good teams nonetheless. However, it does knock them down a peg or 2 in the standings and in the power rankings, of course, as that happens each and every week, which are alive right now on sjhl.ca if you want to go check out the power rankings. This week's edition is out now. You can bring it back into the rink here, Bryce. Again, Melville, not any concern, I don't think,
No.
but it is, again, like a couple of really good teams, and, it just happens some weeks.
And also, you throw the Western Hockey League label on some kids, and again, Luke Brunin is a very good goalie. Not saying he's a bad goalie, but they're young. He's still young. It's not like he had a long Western Hockey League career and came back. So he's going to take some time. I know there's a bit of an injury issue with the goaltending situation there. So Melville is dealing with young goalies right now, kind of thing. So they're going to have to deal with that, and that affects the way a team can play in front of them. And again, they have some relatively new defensemen still trying to figure it out as well.
Yeah.
And Leon Rodman and Wesley Olson and some of the other guys there. And
Wesley Golden.
Pardon me.
But that is one of the things coming into the season with Melville that we weren't quite sure about. Obviously, they went out and got Loic Morin, who is injured at the moment. So this weekend, Nick Jeanette and, like you said, Luke Brunin played in net over the weekend. Those are 2 young goaltenders, and they're still fresh in their SJHL careers.
Yeah, but boy, oh boy, if there's one SJ player that I've really liked so far from watching this practice, Connor Miller looks like he's taken another huge step. D1 Augustana commit. I think he's probably
back to the Humboldt Broncos.
Write his pencil name on the Canada West sheet if he keeps playing like this.
Yeah, he'll be solid, and we can't wait. Again, puck drop tonight is at 7:30. We'll have it all on Flow Hockey for you, myself and Nugsy on the call. So it should be a great game. Team SJHL versus Team Manitoba, or MJHL, I should say. Game 1 of 2 goes tonight. Game 2 is tomorrow morning at 11:30, and again, all of that action can be seen on Flow Hockey. So get your subscription if you haven't already. It's going to be a good time. If you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, please hit that like and share button as we continue the show. It helps us out a ton. And I saw a comment. We'll throw this up now before we end this topic here, but Kelly Lewick is watching from the IKS Media Studios back in Regina. He says, look at those stashes. Now, Nugsy went fresh-shaven, clean-shaven. I cheated a little bit for this Movember campaign, but I've never done the full mustache before. I've always just not shaved for the month of November. I'm going mustache this time. You're going to grow it out. He'll catch up to me in no time, folks. He's going to catch up. But let's throw up the Movember standings now, Bryce, if you don't mind. As you can see, early on, the Melfort Mustangs have taken off on a commanding lead. The SJHL staff, which we are a part of, I'm a part of it. You're in there too, aren't you?
I'm trying to figure out how to be on SJHL staff
and Notre Dame.
At the same time.
I don't know if you can.
So far, I'm just on Notre Dame.
But the SJHL staff right now, which is myself, Commissioner Kyle McIntyre, Kelly Lewick from our IKS studios, and Jacob Faith. We're second place. What are all these teams doing? They got to catch up. Notre Dame now in third place. And Weyburn Red Wings are sitting in fourth right now in the standings for Movember. If you want, please, if you're on your computer and you see that QR code, please scan the QR code or go to Movember.ca. Search up the SJHL. If you want to donate to a team specifically, please feel free to do so. If you want to donate to me on the SJHL staff, you could do that. But make sure if you want to get in part of it, it's a great cause. We're changing the face of men's health.
Yeah, and send us pictures of your stashes.
Yes.
If you're a player in the league, even if you're not, send us pictures of your stashes. We'd love to see it. Coaches, staff, volunteers. We'd love to post it, and
fans.
And we might have some prizes.
Yes.
For individuals that do a specifically good job raising funds. So
should be a great time.
Now,
before we wrap up the headlines, it's kind of odds and ends, but we're going to combine it with Nugs and Notes. Is there anything else you want to touch on with any of the teams before we get into Nugs and Notes?
Just jump into
Nugs. It's Nugs and Notes. Nugs and Notes. Nugs and Nugs and Notes.
I don't have my little buddy hopping around, unfortunately.
He's not with us today.
Yeah, he said, you know what, it's not in the budget.
He got stuck in Regina.
He's too expensive to travel.
It started snowing. He couldn't get here.
He's a big diva, what can I say?
Yeah.
Couple trades to talk about really is the main one. I think about the L'Orange Ice Wolves. They had another good young defenseman in Connor Frost from the Weyburn Red Wings. Weyburn got a very good 08 first-year prospect, Dane Mansui, from the Regina Pack Canadians. Of course, Regina and Weyburn not too far away, so Weyburn could use Mansui, as an AP. And so that was actually a pretty good deal for works both ways. I know L'Orange liked Connor Frost, and they were actually trying to recruit him in the first place to come to L'Orange. And so you add another good young defenseman that they have there out in L'Orange. And again, the outlook continues to get better up there in L'Orange. And then the Nipawin Hawks made a big trade, a couple trades, in fact, where they acquired Aiden Bruce from the Humboldt Broncos, a kid that led the BC U18 league in scoring last year and had a lot of promise. Just didn't get a lot of ice time, very veteran-heavy team in that Humboldt Broncos group. And so Aiden Bruce really didn't get the looks that maybe he was hoping for, so he's off to Nipawin. And Noah Heinrich from the Fort McMurray Oil Barons, another Fort McMurray guy. I've been joking around with some of the old Fort McMurray guys around Jaron Denwaye and whatnot about how the fact that there's just all these former Fort McMurray Oil Baron guys around the SJ now. So there's two. And then just a note here, and now, I mean, this is the SJHL Weekly show, Clark, but forgive me for a second because obviously we're plugged in a little bit to the MJHL story right now, and Remy Ledee has committed to the Anchorage, Alaska team, and he is a member of the Selkirk Steelers, and he actually committed last night to Alaska Anchorage. So there's
the showcase continues to pay off.
Yeah, it's and, he's a talented kid. Selkirk has a lot of good players here. You'll see that on the show with Clark and I tonight. There's a lot of good Selkirk Steelers in this tournament, so should be a lot of fun.
Great.
Nugs and Notes.
Nugs and Notes. Let's have a look at the standings now as we wrap up the recap and look ahead to the next couple of segments here. Obviously, as I mentioned, Weyburn has skyrocketed their way up to the top of the standings. Melfort's right below them, obviously 2 games in hand on Weyburn at the moment. Melville with 21 points, 10 wins. Yorkton with 10 wins. That Highway 10 rivalry. Oh boy, can't wait to get to one of those this year. Battlefords and Humboldt and Kindersley all have 9 wins, but they are in different amounts of points due to overtime losses. And L'Orange has now surpassed the Flin Flon Bombers for a playoff spot at this very moment. Of course, Flin Flon has played 2 fewer games, and they are 4 points behind. That's the exact amount of room they need to make up if they want to get back into a spot. Estevan sitting with 10 points. They've only played 12 games, Nugsy. They've barely played. Feels like I never see Estevan on the schedule, but they've barely played. They're going to get back into action soon after the showcase is over. And, of course, Notre Dame with a win earlier this weekend. They move up a little bit, but them and Nipawin down at the bottom there as we wrap up the standings. Let's move on now. Tourism Saskatchewan highlight of the week. Tourism Saskatchewan is back on board after they had to take a bit of a hiatus. So we're excited to get the highlight of the week. And this week, Nugsy kind of teased it earlier, Spencer Borsos of the Notre Dame Hounds against the Battleford's North Stars. There you go. As you can see, an amazing save by Spencer Borsos. And I'm not sure, did the audio get through on that, Bryce? I was going to say, Nugsy probably had an amazing call for that, but that's okay.
Yeah,
We don't need to listen to him any more than we already have.
I had to sit down. Let's play it again.
Want to play it again with the call? Okay, well, let's play it one more time. Let's get that full effect.
Grill, back to Fisher. Fisher, middle point. Through traffic, redirects. Oh, has a chance and a big save by Borsos. Oh, my goodness. Diving across the crease on the rebound.
There you go. So it wasn't Nugsy, it was Austin Mattis, but still, great call. And Tourism Saskatchewan back on board. If you see a highlight of the week while you're at a game or if you're watching on Flow Hockey, please let us know. Send us a tweet, send us a Facebook message or an Instagram message and say, hey, at this point of this game, I saw a crazy play or a goal or a save or something like that. Let us know. We could include your highlight as highlight of the week next week on SJHL Weekly. So make sure you do that. And big shout out to Chevrolet as well for all of our highlights of our games as well throughout the weekend. They are our official highlights pack sponsor. Let's get to the players of the week now as we wrap up this segment, and we're going to bring in our special guest Mike Reagan after the break. The SGEU MVP of the week, we talked about him quite a bit. It's Mason Buchert. He had a big week this week. Now, I think this might be the wrong graphic because he had 7 points this week, but that's okay. He had a big week, and he obviously is a major player for the Laurent Ice Wolves.
Yeah, scored a big goal in Wilcox. I mean, you know what, we thought he'd come in and be a league leader in goals. He's got a great shot.
Yeah.
Great offensive instinct. So no surprise that Mason's finally starting to kind of get the engines going.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll stick with the Laurent Ice Wolves because the Borgo forward of the week is Cole Thomas. Again, this is correct. He had the hat trick against Humboldt. 5 points this week, 3 goals, 2 assists for Cole Thomas. Coming into his own a little bit for Laurent.
Yeah, great face-off guy, and the points are starting to come for him as well. You know, he and Jacob Kazetta formed a really good partnership. I know I talked about the Buchert-Donkin line, but the Kazette-Thomas line looks great too. So, you know, good for them to have that depth.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to the Super U defenseman of the week, and Nugsy talked about him quite a bit. Liam Hunks had a big 4-point night against Battlefords on Friday with the OT winner, and he's playing a ton of minutes for the Notre Dame Hounds.
Yeah, a ton of minutes. Photo credit actually used to Dylan Byrne, I should mention. But anyway.
Dylan Byrne.
Or Jen Mitchell, pardon me, Jen Mitchell.
Yeah, no, it was Jen Mitchell this time.
Mitchell, you're right. Yeah, Liam's got incredible edges, great skater, really done a great job as the captain of the Hounds too this year. And yeah, people who watch him know how good he is. A lot of coaches around the league tell me, hey, there's the one Hound that we want. It's probably Liam Hunks. So, you know, he's pretty special, and I get to watch him every night.
Stay tuned for that. The SaskTel goalie of the week, and again, we're going back to Laurent. It was Logan Falk, 2 wins, 2 big wins against Humboldt and Melville. Now, the goals against might not stand out as something spectacular, but like you said, Nugsy, they found a way to win.
Yeah, they found a way to win, and I wrote on the website article, too, that could have been Graham Brown, too.
Right.
They were both wonderful, so it was kind of both, and I think, but because Falk had the 2 wins, that's why we give it to him.
Yeah, absolutely. The IKS Media Rookie of the Week, again with Laurent. It's Tate Donkin, 6 points this week. Points in 3 of the 4 games over the week. 2 multi-point games. This guy has come in strong for the Ice Wolves.
Yeah, really good left winger. You know, knows his identity. You know, really good offensive instincts too, and guy that knows how to play the game coming through that Minto system. It's a very well-structured system, and he's done well for Laurent so far this year.
And we can't go a week without a Weyburn Red Wings goalie getting an award. It's time for the Cantera Seats Saskatchewan Player of the Week, and of course it's Daza Mitchell, who had a big 47-save performance against Kindersley for the win with a .959 save percentage this week.
Yeah, again, what more can you say? Just makes all the saves, one of the best goalies in the league, and it's been a long time since he hasn't had a great performance, actually. Every time he gets into the game for Weyburn now, it seems like it's a .939, 49, 50 save percentage performance. So some school, D1, U Sports, call Daza right now. He's getting hotter and better.
You're going to get a great goalie if you do. Yeah. Just saying. All right, we're going to hit a break, and after the break, we're going to be joined by general manager of this team, SJHL, here at the showcase this week, Mike Reagan of the Flin Flon Bombers.
Johnsons are hailed out again.
Yeah. That's too bad.
Oh, that storm last night. Did you see it?
You betcha.
Yeah. Crazy one. eh?
Yeah.
Original 16. Celebrate things done well.
Johnsons are hailed out again.
Yeah. That's too bad.
Oh, that storm last night. Did you see it?
You betcha.
Yeah. Crazy one, eh?
Yeah.
Original 16. Celebrate things done well.
Johnsons are hailed out again.
Yeah. That's too bad.
All right, welcome back to SJHL Weekly. We are joined by our special guest here today, Mike Reagan, of course, head coach and general manager of the Flin Flon Bombers. This week, you have a different general manager hat on, with general manager of Team SJHL here for the showcase. A lot of hard work went into putting this roster together, this team together, this event together. How nice is it now to just, the practices are over, you got a game tonight. How nice is it to just get on the ice?
Yeah, it's nice. Just you're not having to hear from other coaches about your picks and stuff like that, and you know it's a difficult process, you
Yeah.
know, and a lot of different factors come into play. You know, ages, left shot, right shot. You know, for Team Canada West, they can only take 505s, so that comes into a factor. And you know, if you take a look at the MJHL roster, they're quite a bit younger than ours, I guess, and it just came down to, you know, guys filling certain positions and stuff like that. There's probably, you know, 10, 15 guys that also deserve to be here that aren't here. We've got a lot of great players in the league, and you know, I know there's some people disappointed and stuff like that, and unfortunately you can only take 20 guys. So you know, to the guys that you know, didn't make it, that maybe are watching, you know, use this as motivation to, you know, propel your season going forward here, and hopefully you can be a part of the SJMJ showcase.
Yeah, of course. And again, this format of this showcase, I think some fans are still getting used to the new format this year compared to previous years, previous All-Star events years ago,
Yeah.
way back. But obviously, it's not the same showcase as it was last year or the couple years before. It's more of a tryout, more or less. Would you say?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I think that the staff for Team Canada West are going to be taking, you know, a handful of guys out of this camp to Calgary to try to make that team, and you know, so it's a process that takes time, and obviously, like, guys are given opportunities, and it's what you make of those opportunities. And I think now it's going to come down to the games here tonight and tomorrow, and hopefully the SJHL can show well, and it's definitely a different format, but I think it's an exciting one. I think there's a handful of schools that are here already watching the practices, and I'm expecting a lot more here tonight, and good exposure for our league and for the players.
I saw a couple of jackets walking around earlier when I got here earlier today, so there's definitely scouts here. I saw
know
them.
that Nuge thinks that they're here to scout him, but they're not.
They already looked the other way.
Make that clear,
Yeah, they
right?
already looked the other way. Mike, you've been involved with Hockey Canada stuff in the past, World Junior A challenges in the past. How does this year's process differ from previous year's processes?
Well, I did it in 15, 16, and 17. And I was actually in 2014 was a guest coach, and it was kind of a nice process that they went through to allow you to grow as a coach and into different roles. And in 15, I was the video coach. 16, I was the assistant coach, and then in 17, was the head coach. And back then we were having a camp in Calgary where we were inviting 60 players to the camp. And you want to talk about scouts. Every NHL team was there, and every Division I school was there, and half of the U Sports schools were there. So it was a great experience. It's nice to see that they're going back to a 30-man camp. I wish that it was more. It's really difficult to be making decisions on players that you're not real familiar with, and trying to find out who you can trust in the recommendations of players and stuff like that. I think everybody that's been involved in it before would say that you have some hits and you have some misses too. So hopefully you don't miss out on too many guys. And I think that this is tremendous that the SJ and MJHL came together, and the two leagues work so well together. And I think it only makes us stronger. It'd be nice if the AJHL would jump on board and be a part of this. I think it could be a great thing going forward in the future. Kind of like back in the day when they used to have the Viking Cup, and they'd have Team Saskatchewan, Team Manitoba, Team Alberta, Team BC, and then they'd bring in like Finland and Sweden and some other teams, and that was really cool. So maybe it's something that's going to evolve.
Well, Kyle McIntyre, if you're listening, we just got a recommendation on the next step and the next next format of this.
This is more a recommendation to the AJHL.
Right, get in here.
I think Kyle's on board with it.
Kyle's on board.
I think Kevin's on board, but hopefully they can jump on board as well.
So with your role here this week, obviously team GM of Team SJHL, 2 practices down. How are you feeling about this couple of sessions so far?
Ready to roll. You you're excited about the practices. You want to see guys and get more familiar with them and that sort of thing. But then after the first practice, you're kind of like, okay, let's play. So I'm excited about tonight's game. I think the players are. I think the jitters are kind of out of the way. I would say, last night's practice, you could see some jitters in some guys. But at the end of the day, pressure makes diamonds, and we're hoping to find a few diamonds here tonight.
Yeah, how much of that do you think was, a lot of these guys, Junior A players, maybe haven't had a chance to be on national rosters before, walking into the locker room, seeing a Hockey Canada jersey.
Yeah.
How much of it was that, and then did you notice that maybe, like you said, kind of settling down after a practice or two?
Yeah, for sure. I think today the guys were a little looser, but I think tonight, once you get into the game, you get your first shift out of the way, I think that then it's just hockey, right? And you kind of notice that at the SJMJ showcase as well. The first, skate together, everybody's kind of like, who's this guy? And, everybody, aren't their natural selves that they would be with their club team. And you try to open up those guys and tell them to have some fun with it and enjoy the experience and that. But it is a whole new ball game when you walk in and you see that Team Canada jersey. So, it's quite the honor for the guys that get that opportunity. And then, as you go on to the Calgary camp and then hopefully some guys make the team, then the real honor, takes place, and you see how much it means to guys at that point.
So lots of talent on this roster. Obviously, like you said, there was a lot of hard decisions made. 2 of the guys that you're very familiar with, Cohen Sempt and Luke Lepper from the Flin Flon Bombers. Can you tell us a little bit about their game and just what you're excited about for them tonight?
Well, I'll start with Cohen. I think a big reason why he's in this position is because he played with us as a 17-year-old, you know, and it just goes to show what that experience can do for a guy. I think he's looked really good. He looks like a veteran out there.
Yeah.
He looks like a poised guy that, understands the situation and what he's got to do. I thought he had 2 really good practices, but now it's what do you do in the game? You don't win games in practice. So, and then when it comes to Leps, I had a guy back in the day, Danny Chartrand, that got a commitment to North Dakota, and since then I don't think we've had as smooth of a skater as Luke Lepper. And I think that a lot of people don't really know how good Leps is. He's kind of like one of those guys that doesn't pop off the page at you. He's not going to put up, 70, 80 points. Like, he's not like a Xavier Lapointe type player.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think this guy's ever gotten beat one-on-one. He's one of the fastest skaters and best skaters that I've had. And I think he's looked very good, and he's got great poise. He doesn't panic very often with the puck and that. So, obviously those are my guys, and I'm proud of them, and I want the best for them. But at the same time, when it comes to making a team to go on and represent Western Canada and stuff like that, you got to take off those rose-colored glasses or the biased opinion. And at the end of the day, you're trying to build a team that's going to win, and so you got to take the best players, and whether it's your guy or someone else's guy, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I think that was maybe some of the feedback that I was seeing from maybe some of the fan bases around the SJHL is, why wasn't this team represented or whatever? And it's tough. It's not your typical format in terms of a showcase. It's not necessarily showcasing every team. It's trying to make a team for Team Canada West, and I think that's the biggest difference, would you say?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's where people don't understand is, and I know, like, there's some teams that don't have a representative here and that sort of thing. That doesn't mean that they're not great players.
Right.
Like, I mean, like I said, some of these guys, like, you can't take 20-year-olds here.
Yeah.
And some teams are built, with an older group and that sort of thing. When it comes down to the SJMJ Showcase, I think you're going to see a lot of the guys that aren't here right now playing on those teams, but it's completely different. Again, you have to look at position, like you have to look lefty, righty. What are you looking for? A shutdown defenseman to move on? Because when it comes to Canada West, you need role players. You need guys that maybe are top six guys on their club team, but can play a bottom six role,
right,
or fit in as just a penalty kill guy at the World Junior A Challenge. So and that's what my message to, I guess, fans and people that are upset about maybe their team not being represented enough or whatever. Don't read too much into it. You guys got great players and great teams and that sort of thing. It's just about the fit.
Yeah, and that was one of the comments I saw was, how come Caden Drury's not here? Well, he's 20.
Yeah,
So wait for the other showcase. There's other showcases for those guys. But the goalies,
I promise you he'll be at that one. I mean, not that I have a say, I guess.
Inside scoop,
I'm pretty sure that kid's going to be on Team Sask.
I have a feeling. I always love talking about the goalies, and you have a couple of really good ones here. Obviously, that was probably, I'm going to speak for you here a little bit, but maybe one of the harder decisions to make was the goaltenders, just because there's a good crop this year in the SJHL. But Callum Craig and Angelo Zoll, I guess talk about maybe the process first, but what do these two guys bring to the team?
Well, I think that
what made them stand out, I guess, is
it's always difficult. And I know that, trust me, I had a tough conversation with a few people over the last couple days and stuff like that. And it's not that the guys that aren't here aren't great goaltenders, and they probably could be here very easily. I'm not a goalie coach. I'm not a goalie guru or anything like that. I put some trust and faith into guys that I know that maybe coach the position or played the position, and get their opinions. And I know at the end of the day, myself and the other coaches have the final say in who comes here and stuff like that. But I'm not going to discredit the knowledge or the expertise of guys that I trust. And the two guys that were selected have had great seasons so far. I think that it doesn't hurt that both those guys, when they played us in Flin Flon, had phenomenal games. But that wasn't the final decision. It just kind of reconfirms what the guys that are suggesting them have told me about them. So both guys have looked good so far, but again, it's practice and it's what you do in the games.
Yeah, so talk about your coaching staff a little bit. Obviously, Carter Hansen getting a chance to step behind the bench as the head coach with a couple of guys who are very established beside him, and
Yeah.
Clayton Jardine and Braden Klamosko. Must be pretty cool for him to get that kind of experience.
For sure. You know, I think Carter's been in the league for quite a while, and you know, was a player in the league
Yeah.
as well.
Back in my day,
Yeah.
when I was with Estevan.
He has a real passion for obviously the SJHL, and you know, he's been very committed to the work that he's put in, and that's how he, you know, it's about coaches getting opportunities as well, and developing coaches. And he's got two guys in Braden Klamosko and Clayton Jardine that got a lot of experience, and I think the biggest reason why those two guys are involved is because they've coached in the World Junior A Challenge as well, and so they know the process that you go through
Yeah.
to select a team, and they understand that you can't always just take the same type of players. You can't have, you know, 12 forwards that all do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need those gritty guys in your bottom six, or, you know, you need a heavier defenseman, or maybe, you know, some size on the back end, and that sort of thing. So I always talk about, like, you're trying to build a house, and when you build a house, you don't just have a carpenter.
Right.
You know, you need an electrician, you need a plumber, you need guys to install the windows, you need guys doing different jobs in order to build the best house that you can, and that's what we're trying to do here.
So back to your day job now, just to wrap up the interview here. The Bombers, you know, they had a start. I'm sure probably wasn't in the plans. Let's
No.
just go with that. Can you break down the first 16 games for us?
Yeah, I think that our start was just okay. You know, I think we're 2-0-1 or something like that, and then you know, we ran into a lot of injuries, and we'll never use injuries as an excuse. I mean, I take a look at Melfort last year.
Yeah.
They had a ton of injuries, and I think it made them better.
Mhm.
You know, it made them more resilient, and you know, built a lot of faith in their young guys, and their young guys got to develop, and in the end, you know, it paid off for them. So we've talked about that a lot, but you know, at one point we lost our top 3 out of our top 4 centermen, and when you don't have a guy like Keith Gruner,
Who was off to a great start.
yeah, point a game guy, and
Yeah.
leading our team in scoring, and probably is an 80% face-off guy, so we start with the puck a lot when he's out there, makes a huge difference. So we're going to get him back here this weekend, we're hoping anyways, and obviously we've added a couple guys with major junior experience that I think are going to kind of settle things down and just have that maturity in the locker room. And we also, if people take a look, we played, I think, Melfort 3 times during this stretch. We've played Weyburn twice, we've played Humboldt twice, and we played Yorkton.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been an easy stretch, and to be honest with you, we probably deserve to win at least 3 of those,
Sure, yeah.
and they're all one-goal hockey games, and you're going up against, I think all 4 of those teams are going to be playoff teams, and I think they're going to be in the upper half of the league. And I think we fared pretty well. Would we like a few more points? Yeah, no question about
Yeah.
it. But I think this is a big month for us. I think November we've got to be ready to go. And you know, our schedule is a little lighter, and I think that the guys are motivated and getting some healthy bodies back, and adding a little, you know, punch in the arm with the guys that we acquired and stuff like that, I think could make a difference.
Yeah, that we talked about that a little bit on SJHL Insider on Thursday. Just the strength of schedule for you guys, like, it's no joke. Like, you guys have been through the ringer. Like,
Yeah.
it's the gauntlet has started. How much does that pay off maybe down the stretch? You get the tough games out of the way. You say, hey guys, we were in it all those games, and how much does that pay off down the road?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's what we're hoping for,
Yeah.
anyways. You know,
Yeah.
I think that last year we didn't lose our first game, or I think we had 1 loss before Christmas, and we didn't face a
Right.
lot of adversity. And then we got into a little bit of a grind in February, I believe, and we faced some adversity, and we didn't handle it very well, you know. And I think that I mean, obviously we turned it around. We were able to sweep our first 2 rounds in the playoffs, and then we came up against a team that was hungry and had quite the resilient series against Humboldt, and we just dug ourselves too big of a hole.
Yeah.
And so this year we're looking at it as, like, you know, maybe this adversity was really good for us, you know, And I think that a lot of people going into the season had us pegged as one of the top teams in the league, and we didn't get out of the gate the way we wanted to, and now guys are finding out you have to work for it. You know, there's no easy game, and I really don't see anybody running away with SJHL this year.
No.
I think there's not an easy game, and it's going to be a dogfight come playoff time like that. I know we're sitting in 9th place right now. We're not a 9th place hockey team. I can tell you that right now.
Well, Yorkton was in 9th like a couple weeks ago, and they're back in the top 5.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it doesn't take long to sort of turn it around either.
No, there's quite a logjam.
Yeah.
You know, if you get on a 3 or 4 game winning streak, I mean, you can find yourself right back up in the top 5 and that sort of thing. So a very interesting season for the fans, and like I think it's great for the SJHL. You know, so. Yeah, kudos to all the coaches and GMs out there that have done a great job of recruiting this year and making it interesting for everybody.
Well, Mike, thanks so much for your time today. Obviously, best of luck with the rest of this week and whatever comes next after this for that. And then obviously the Bombers back in action this weekend. So best of luck and thanks for your time today.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, when we come back, I'm out of here. Jamie Neugebauer and Rory McGouran are jumping in. They're going to preview the rosters a little bit more for tonight's game and look ahead for the rest of the week. So stay tuned.
Hey, Phil, how's the crops this year?
Well, you know, can't complain.
Original 16. Celebrate things done well.
You switching up insurance providers this year?
No,
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
that's right.
Welcome back inside the Warman Home Center Communiplex. Rory McGouran now on the show, joined by Jamie Neugebauer. Big thanks to head coach of the Flin Flon Bombers, obviously, and general manager of the Western All-Star Showcase, Mike Reagan, for joining us. And big thanks for Clark Munroe for keeping the ship sailing smoothly, as he always does. But Nugsy, we got puck drop tonight, 7:30, Team SJHL against Team MJHL. Of course, tomorrow morning at 11:30. But what are we to expect with this new format of the Western All-Star Showcase in compared to other years?
Yeah. So remember last number of years, in fact, as far as I've been around the SJ back since 2017, every team would come here, play 2 games, and we'd see everybody, and it was a lot of fun that way. But it's changed up. Obviously, we have under 19 teams, SJ, MJ, trying to get spots on the selection camp roster for Team Canada West at the World Junior A Challenge coming in December in Camrose, Alberta. And, of course, lots of talent on display. So I expect the competition to be really hot, Rory.
Yeah, so obviously in years past, it was fun to see all 12 teams for the SJHL roll into Warman, into the arena, right? Players get to meet each other if they haven't. You had a roller coaster of days with 4 games throughout some of the days. Long days for guys like you and I. But I do definitely love the change. Yes, you're going to get some teams not have some representation. Some have more than others. But for the amount of opportunities that these guys now here are going to get and moving forward going to get, I think are better than what they've ever been in years past. You're going to have a lot of scouts here. Obviously, it's not just a couple of all-star games. This is a tryout. Yeah. This is a chance to go towards the Team Canada West, selection camp coming up later in Calgary in November. So I would say more is on the line in this new format.
Yeah, that's a great point. You think about the just terminology even, Rory, like showcase, all-star, we think, what do we think? We think 2-on-1s and 3-on-1s and flashy and this and that. And, you know, maybe that'll happen, but I actually expect them to go hard
have
at
to.
each other. You have to. They are competing with each other. They're competing with guys in the other team to wear that Canada jersey. And I said it earlier in the show, these guys are really loving the fact they get to wear the Canada crest. Why wouldn't you? You know, we spoke to Jaden Iogan. He had a little video with him on SJHL social media, Rory, and, you know, he said, hey, like every kid grows up dreaming of wearing this crest, and they get to. So, you know, it's extra special, and the guys are going to bring it.
Well, and not only do you get to wear the jersey, wear the crest, but you go in as the defending gold medal champions if you do crack the roster with Team Canada West. So really cool. Obviously, we want to break down the two rosters, Team MJHL, Team SJHL, before we wrap the show and get you set up for 7:30 tonight with the puck drop. But let's start with the MJHL. Let's talk about the traveling team coming in, our provincial neighbors, and we'll kind of break it down in tiers and starting with their goaltenders. Already one of them committed to Bemidji State, NCAA Division I, and then Mitchell Cathler, not committed yet, but coming in with absurd numbers. So while we're talking about the netminders, I'll just pose you a question. You can toss it back and forth if you want. Do the MJHL team have the edge in terms of netminders going up against the SJHL's Angelo Zoll and Callum Craig?
Well, I mean, we'll find out. I mean, it comes down to
Sure.
It comes down to the games, whether you stop the puck or not. It doesn't matter if you have a committed name beside your, or a committed logo beside your name on the roster sheet. But yes, Raiden Legal does have a committed crest on there, and obviously a very talented young goaltender for the Niverville Nighthawks. And it's not been a perfect season for Raiden Legal. In the MJ, Mitchell Cathler, on the other hand, he has stopped everything for the Portage Terriers. And in practice, I saw him. He was unbelievable. He's top 3 in every goaltending category in the MJHL. That is including against other 20-year-old goalies in the MJHL. So, you know, do they have the edge? We'll see. Interesting thing, Rory, about the SJ, and I'll throw it back to you then. What do you make of Zoll and Krieg? Because they're two guys that should have big chips on their shoulder. They came into their teams in Yorkton and Weyburn expecting maybe to be number 2s.
Yeah.
And how here they are.
Yeah, that's what is the big story for me about these two goaltenders coming in, is that they entered their team, their respective years in the SJHL, behind other goaltenders, at least on paper, what we thought. Zoll behind Dazza Mitchell and Callum Craig behind Ethan Farrow. Well, you look at both of their numbers, and it's also absurd for the SJHL. So, yes, we're going to have to wait to see when the games play out. But, you know, combined near 20 games for Angelo Zoll and Callum Craig. Their experience, they know what they're doing. They have a great team in front of them, and we'll find out, you know, which group of netminders. We'll see who gets the start a little later tonight. But Legal and Cathler against Zoll and Craig is one of my biggest storylines.
And last point about the goaltending before we move on. The SJHL did a little drill where they were going back and forth doing sort of breakaway relay type things. You know, obviously the coaches didn't want to kill them on the morning of a game night, so they had a little fun. And Ben, Zoll and Craig were going shot for shot. Guys were not scoring. Like, it was impressive stuff. Fun to watch, good competition, and two goalies that, frankly, right now are used to winning in the SJHL. That's a good sign.
MJHL's defense core, it's a little younger, just two 19-year-olds on the roster. Actually, their whole team's a little bit younger than what the SJHL brought. But already, again, if we're talking about NCAA commits, two of them both going to Northern Michigan in Avery Laliberte and Reese Gall, two that you're really high on as well.
Yeah, really skilled guys, and, you know, again, there's a bunch of Steinbach Pistons as well, so there's some chemistry there. You know, again, another Niverville kid, Laliberte there, again, very skilled. I think puck movement and skill and having the puck is more the way that this MJ team will try to defend. The SJ, we'll talk about in a second, but a lot heavier, a lot bigger and older.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a long list of guys that are interesting, and you talk about Laliberte, of course, NHL Central Scouting watch list. They'll have a close eye on him, and, you know, they could be teammates before long with some very familiar names to SJHL fans. Of course, Aiden Hutchinson and Ryan Duguay and Ryan Willett and Tynan Ewart, all at Northern Michigan. Northern Michigan's coach is from Manitoba, so they're paying close attention to the prairies in general, and there's plenty of Northern Michigan content on Team MJHL, and Laliberte and Reese Galt are there. Of course, Reese Galt, his big brother Caden, played in the SJ-MJ showcase for the MJ as a forward, and he's at Ferris State University right now with you know, a couple SJHL alums in Holden Dole and Connor McGrath as well. So yeah, very interesting to see how this MJ team defends.
And on the other side, when you look at the SJHL's defense, man, they are big, they are older, they are meaner, they are physical. And when you talk about puck movement, I think they might have the elite kind of bread and butter of just making the simple and right play because of that experience, getting the puck south-north.
I'll put you on the spot here for
Sure.
a second, Rory. Are are the top 4D on Team SJHL the top 4D in the SJHL?
It's very possible.
That's
Yeah.
definitely the argument.
Yeah.
I mean, again,
Regardless of
these
age.
are 19-year-olds and under, and of
Yeah.
course we talk about the Prairie Leagues being, having a lot of 20-year-olds carry the load. We think about Lepper and Palmerine and McElwain and Herchak. That could be the top 4D in the SJ. So interesting stuff. You're about to mention the heaviness element, how that could impact this game.
Well, because I want to bleed back into what the MJHL team are bringing in terms of their forward group, and that's where the best matchup comes to me. It's the MJHL's forward against the SJHL's defense core. Because you look at Vinnie Palmerine, Oakley McElwain, they're adults. They're two mature adults, right? You got Luke Lepper, Jackson Herchak, Thomas Reese, and Max Chakrabrati, who are rounding out the 6 defensemen. MJHL's bringing in a lot of youth, a lot of speed, a lot of skill, a lot of puck finesse. Can that be enough to neutralize what is going to be a very structured, very heavy, very physical SJHL defense core, or is it going to be too much for the MJ to handle? On the opposite side, is the SJHL maybe not fast enough, or too big and physical and mean and that kind of DNA to really slow down a high-powered and skilled offense for the MJ? That's the biggest matchup for me.
Yeah, well, you obviously, you and I, and for those that are aware of the SJHL, have done a lot of previewing and broadcasting of SJHL finals and series over the last number of years, and we've talked a lot about when a sort of a fast, a speed skill team takes on a bit of a heavier, older team. The question is, what does the game look like, and therefore, which team has the advantage? What does the game model have? Are the pucks battles along the wall, or is it sort of more BCHL style, end-to-end and transition? What will it look like? That'll be the determining factor. The details of tape-to-tape passes, the details of not turning pucks over, the details of good, smart dump-ins, cross-corner dump-ins with a guy who's willing to be that F1 to get his face smushed just against the glass a little bit. That'll be a big difference in these games. And you heard Mike Reagan talk to Clark Munroe a second ago about, sometimes, especially these MJ, SJ guys, they're top 6 forwards, they're elite guys in their league. Can they play a bottom 6 role? Can they do something different? That'll be very interesting to see as well. But really, to answer your question, if there was a question in there, it's hard to say who has the edge, because we'll have to find out.
Over a 7-game series, I like big, I like structure, I like physical. This is a 2-game series.
Yeah.
It's 2 games, and show us what you got, right? So again, it's the best matchup on paper for me is MJ's forwards against SJ's defense. You'll see it at 7:30 puck drop. Flow Hockey, of course, with IKS Media, with Clark Munroe. Jamie Neugebauer will have the call. It's going to be a great game tonight and tomorrow. But the SJHL, it's the final group we want to feature. They're not bringing any slouches when you're talking about their forward group. A little more balanced, I'd say, maybe. A little bit less sizzle, but definitely some substance.
Yeah, substance. And you know what? I think I look at this group, Rory, and I see a group that actually you could put roles on them.
Yep.
You think about, the top 2 lines. You think about, some really pure skill there at Dustin Renas and Jaden Yogan. And then you look at the bottom 4, kind of, and obviously there's no slouches there. They're putting up points, but physical guys. William Leonard on Yorkton, 06 birth year, he's not a big boy. He's like 5'8", but he says personally, hey, I feel like I'm a physical guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not big, but I'm a physical guy. Raiden Zacharias, again, he's mucked it up in the Western Hockey League. He doesn't mind that type of game either. So, it's obviously to survive in the SJHL landscape, you have to be willing to have a little bit of body contact. But it's interesting how it's roll, whereas maybe going top to bottom in the MJ forward core, it's skill and speed all day, all the time. So, it's very interesting to see. But I guess I'll ask you, Rory, what are a couple of MJHL forwards that are really sticking out to you?
Yeah, for the forwards, you got to start with obviously the leading scorer in the MJHL and Owen Warnick, right? And then also on his line, this is just what's on the program. Do we really know if it's going to be his line mate throughout the whole game? Anything could change. But out of the Selkirk Steelers, my hometown, actually, where I grew up in Selkirk, Rohan Guvara as well is another one. Right now they're paired up on a line, but 2 that I'm keeping my eye on, 106 already committed, and Guvara, a really young, talented 07.
Yeah, very interesting line. Suprian on their left wing as well. Boy, can he fly out of North Manitoba. So that line should be very, very dynamic if they do stick together. And last thing I should mention about the Manitoba forwards is Remy Ledee. Last night, Rory, just committed to Alaska Anchorage. So congratulations to him. He's a fine 07 birth year forward out of, let me check it here. He's out of Selkirk, again, your hometown,
there you
as
go.
you mentioned. So he's a guy that people have a lot of eyeballs on, young player as well. And again, just watching the practice, MJ, they can fly.
Yep.
Lots of guys who can skate.
Well,
so
they got 6 already committed NCAA Division I players. So it's going to be a really, really great matchup. Before we wrap up the show, a couple predictions. They're always fun to do. It's what we love doing on this show, right? Predictions and games. Let's go with one MJHL player that you think will lead the tournament in scoring.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to bet against Mr. Warnick there. Leads the league in scoring as an underage guy, an 18-year-old committed to Northern Michigan, lighting it up. And I mentioned if that line stays together, Supri and Warnick and Guevara, hard to bet against them.
One SJHL player that will lead the tournament in points.
Yeah, I mean, the most dynamic guy I thought in the practice, at least, was Dustin Renas, and he's the leading scorer, I believe, in the SJHL that's in this event. Of course, Jacob Streetsy unfortunately had to pull out due to an injury. Otherwise, it would have been him. But so Dustin Renas is now the one who's leading, and he comes in red hot with the Yorkton Terriers, and so I'm going to go with him.
I got a unique story and a throwback maybe for some listeners and obviously SJHL fans that would recognize this in the past. But I'm going to go with a bit of a dark horse pick only because he was left off the initial roster. Now go back to last year's SJHL MJHL showcase, this one taking place in Winnipeg, of course. And who got left off the roster? Cam Herdlicka, the goaltender, right, for the Estevan Bruins. Then a late injury gets Cam on the team, and he was, if not the best, one of 3 best SJHLers in that tournament. Well, now turn the calendar to this year. Obviously, no Estevan Bruin on the roster. Jacob Streetsy out with an injury. So who goes in? Kent Moores of the Estevan Bruins, and he's my dark horse pick. It's going to shadow what happened last year to lead the Western All-Star Showcase here in points. I'm going with Kent Moores.
Very, very cool. Yeah, and then just a guy to kind of open eyes that maybe people aren't as familiar with as like a star that's always putting up numbers and whatnot, but I've liked it every time I've seen Rylan Wheeler play. I think he's a guy for the Kindersley Clippers that can really play up and down a lineup. I've seen him first-line center for Kindersley and look great. You know, I've seen him down the lineup and killing penalties and winning draws. You know, I wondered coming into this tournament, Rory, where they would find centermen because the SJHL maybe was a little bit lighter on younger centermen, money of wingers. But he's a pure centerman, wins a lot of faceoffs, does a lot of little things well, and I think he'll open up some eyes. How about you? I'm
also going up the middle, and it's a guy who was under the largest shadow that the SJHL had to create last year in Kean Bell, and I'm going with Rylan Williams of the Battlefords North Stars to really open eyes. Yes, he's a 19-year-old coming into this year's event, but again, under that shadow, kind of not talked about a lot, and then he comes into this year, and all 4 of us left them off our SJHL draft picks. So I know this guy's got a chip on our shoulder to not just prove to all the people watching and all the scouts, but even to prove to us that we shouldn't have left them off. And I'm going to say Rylan Williams because he does not get talked about enough. He's a point-per-game player for the North Stars, second on a team in points. He'll center a really productive line, and we know what he can do when he has some dynamic line mates on his ice time with him. So I'm going to go Rylan Williams.
Yeah, that's a good call. Eogan and Senft on his wing. That's very interesting. And boy, is he as strong as an ox. He could throw around some of those younger Manitoba defensemen. And again, Mike Reagan was talking about guys can play a role. Rylan Williams can play 1 to 12 in your forward quarter very easily. So why not a farm boy strong kid from Kyle, Saskatchewan?
Final question. Are you ready for the call?
Oh yeah, can't wait. Can't wait. Full hockey. Clark and I are going to call it. Can't wait. Should be a lot of fun, so make sure you tune in.
Got to thank our sponsors first, of course, all the shows brought to you by Borgo, Cantera Seeds, Capital Auto Mall, SGEU, SGI, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Sask Lotteries, Chevrolet, Nutrien, Tours in Saskatchewan, RBC, Great Western, and the company that sponsors all of our shows, and I'm wearing them today, trying to get some sponsor shout out there, is UPL. So thanks to all of our sponsors. As Nugsy said, as Clark said, tune in, Flow Hockey. It's game 1 of the Western All-Star Showcase, 7:30 here in Warman. You're not going to want to miss it. An unreal game and an unreal event coming for you. For everyone watching the show, thank you for watching. It's been another great edition of SJHL Weekly.